to another edition of Detroit Table Talk. We are in the building. It's Saturday, and let me tell you, it's a really nice day out. It's not as cold as I thought it would be, but it's beautiful. You know, anytime I can look out the window where I'm sitting and see yellow trees, I see some reds, I see some oranges and some greens. Baby, it's fall. And it's the holiday season. I am so excited. We got past Halloween. It was a good day. My grandsons had so much candy. One of my grandsons had a duffel bag full of candy. Bless all of our heart. And we are now moving into Thanksgiving. So we have so much to be thankful for. Every day, if you are a follower of mine, every day I'm putting up a thankful post. So I started it 6 days ago. So today, post number 6 went up. You want to check that out. And if you want to join, go right ahead. Put something up every day that you're thankful for up into Thanksgiving. So I'm excited about that. But this is also a season or a time of the season where I'm actually just thinking about it now that I'm saying it. It's a sombering time because, you know, my mom has not been here for a couple of years. And so we have Thanksgiving, and then 2 or 3 days after Thanksgiving is my mom's birthday. So I think I'm starting to feel it. And I was just saying, why am I so tired and I feel so drained? I think sometimes without us really realizing it, our bodies can respond to, you know, different things, you know, time of the season or whatever. But be that as it may, we're going to push through it. We're going to get through Thanksgiving. You already know my Christmas tree is up. It's beautiful. I'm building a topper. And it's weird because I'm doing it piece by piece as I find it. I couldn't find my topper. I don't know what happened to my beautiful black angel. I don't know. So I'm building a topper. So hopefully within the next 2 days, she will be finished, meaning all the pieces will be put together. And I'm just going to sit in the living room and look at the tree with the lights on, with my cup of hot chocolate. In a couple of days, it'll probably switch over to some wine. You know, whatever. It's usually hot chocolate. You know, but yeah, I'm going to switch over to some wine because it make me feel like I'm grown. It make me feel like I'm doing something when I'm sitting in the living room, the tree is lit, and my foot, you know, is up on the table, my legs is crossed, and I'm just feeling good. But, you know, this is my season. I'm watching Christmas movies every single day that I can. Before I go to sleep, one Christmas movie has to be watched. Yesterday, I watched Miracle on 34th Street. Can I get an applause for that?
That's her movie, y'all. She was like, we need to, somebody acknowledge that I love this movie.
Okay. It'll probably be Alf tonight.
Alf is solid. Alf is solid.
It has to be played every year. Like, okay, I'll ask that.
My mom always did A Christmas Story. That's hers.
A Christmas Story or Imitation of Life. There are some classics that have to be watched. You can't get through the season without putting those movies on. But listen, we're going to move on. We have a tight schedule on today. I am joined at the table by Miss Rachel Webster.
Hello.
She was with us the week before last talking about the trauma of a woman. And today we are here talking about trauma in relationships.
Yes.
Are we going to deal with it?
And there's lots to be dealt with.
It is, you know, because I don't think a lot of times we're quick to point the finger. You know, my mom used to tell me, you know, when I was younger, I used to be like, my sister, you know, and she'd be like, you see that little one finger of yours? She said, how many pointing back at you? And I'd be like I couldn't count. So she said, as you're pointing your finger at that person, know that there's 3 more pointing back at you. So that means before you can take an evaluation of somebody else, evaluate, you know.
Yeah. Look at what you may or may not be doing.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right. The Bible even tells us, you know, before you get the speck out of somebody's eye, consider the one that's in yours.
Absolutely.
So listen, Dr. Kamara is back. He had been gone overseas or he was somewhere, okay? I think he went back home. But he's back. Dr. Kamara is virtually at the table with a video. He has some more economic advice for us. So I want you guys to hang tight. We're going to go and see what Dr. Kamara have to say. And then we're going to follow up by BK Stowe Christmas. Whatever it is. You know, it's a video. It's music. I think it is. But we're going to be back, right back. Give us a second, guys.
Hello, Carmen. Hello to the audience of the Detroit Table Talk. This is Dr. Kamara coming to you from the University of Detroit Mercy. Today, I have a topic that I consider of high importance to our audience. So I thought that I would share this with us and so people can make informed decision. It's a topic of mortgages. One, mortgages, the mortgage rates that you actually have to pay has a lot to do with the economy and a lot to do with your credit score. Okay, now if we start with the economy, right? If you compare today, for instance, to 2021, buying a house, you know, that's worth $250,000 at with 5% down payment, a 30-year fixed mortgage rate was about 2.71% then. Today, it's about 7.76%, almost 3 times the rate of the previous 2 years. Now, if we go to look at your credit score, good credit score are linked to lower rate, even though the higher rate is due here to the economy. Look at the payment here. The lower your credit score, the higher is your payment, and the lower your credit score, the higher the total amount that you have to pay. Looking at the total amount, we go from $597,960 for people who have very high credit score in total payment over the life of the loan to $662,760 for people who have low credit score. So that leads us to compare, by looking at, the credit score of, good credit score and their payments. For someone with good credit score in 2021, that person would have only paid $965 a month for a total of $347,400 for the lifetime of the loan. So that leads us to what we always talk about. How do we save money? Well, we can save money by making sure that we pick the right time to borrow to buy a house. 2021 compared to 2023, you would have saved about $251,000. So waiting for that rate to come down, if possible, could be something that people can consider. But if you were to borrow these years, within this year, you need to make sure that you actually improve your credit score as much as possible. Within this same, within the same year, if you move from credit score to credit score, you can save about $28,000 to $65,000 over the lifetime of the loan if you actually improve your credit score. So that was my message this week, and I wish you a very happy weekend.
I really fuck with all the songs. I'm a fuck with night though. I just begin. So I go on. Let's begin. Told my bad bitch I'm gon' ball. All my niggas stand up tall. Got them rickies, have a draw. Fuck them niggas, we gon' ball. In your hood, you know we dog. Fuck them bitches, fuck them all. Fuck them. Shit, how I feel it, fuck them all. Icy wrist, I got a ball. 4-5 shootin', we kill them all. I'm that nigga in the city, cause the bitches cribs and name them all. All my niggas, killers, shooters, takers, we gon' chop them all. I just left my new bitch crib, cause fuck her, we gon' knock them off. I just begin, 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 I just begin. Did the dash off in an old Porsche, riding hard for a Rolls Royce. Let her play that monogamy shit with you, she ain't got no choice. Fuck the heart, sent the invoice, presidential behind doors. 55s in my face, bitch, you see I need like 5 horse. I just begin, I just begin, I just begin. Grinding hard for a Rolls Royce. fuck the bitch, but I need more. Friend calling, bitch pushing on. She ain't no damn whore. Got the bricks in by the ton. We weigh the money to count the funds. Every day I got my gun, so run up, get pop son. Pop, pop, shit, pop, pop, shit.
I am so glad that Dr. Kamara is back. Dr. Kamara is a professor over at University of Detroit Mercy, my alma mater. I am so elated that he contributes to Detroit Table Talk. He comes in twice a month to give us some kind of financial advice. If you get a chance, go back and rewind it to that part and utilize it and allow it to be a blessing for your life. But for right now, we're going to talk about dealing with trauma in relationships.
Yes, we are.
So
That's what we're talking about
that's
today.
That's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And that's, it's kind of touchy because when you talk about stuff like that, you got to now reevaluate some of the stuff that you do in the relationship.
I mean, that's the goal. That's the goal for all of us to
it's a hard pill, though.
be learning and growing. I think it's important that we remember that none of us are perfect. We are all works in progress. And so there are going to be mistakes. And that's actually one of the biggest mistakes I think you can make in a relationship is to believe that you are not in some way contributing to the problem if there is a problem.
That's good. If you think that everything you do is right, then
that's part of the problem.
You're probably the problem. You're it, sir. You're it, ma'am.
That's definitely a part of the problem.
Before we go into the whole full blown out conversation, I want you guys to watch this. And 5, 4.
The person who's been traumatized wants nothing more than love. But because it's so unfamiliar to them, when they get it, they're suspicious of it and they reject it and they test it and they punish the person who's trying to love them unless they meet somebody who's bad for them. When they meet somebody who's bad for them and is also abusive and is also neglectful, this feels familiar. I know how to navigate this person. I'm going to love you with all my heart. But somebody who's consistent, caring and loving, what's wrong with you? Why are you loving me? This can't be real. Let me test you. Let me swear at you. Let me shout at you. Let me pretend to break up with you. Let me test you. But you, the abusive, neglectful, narcissistic kind of partner, you're exactly what the doctor ordered. I know exactly what to do with you, so I'm going to love you endlessly.
Wrong. Relationship trauma is real. Being with a person that is not compatible, that is not your soulmate, that is not your future husband or wife, that trauma, that not being good enough for a person that don't value the gifts that you have, that's trying to turn you into a person you not so that you can be better for them instead of letting you go, so you can find a person that appreciate everything about you inwards and outwards, will cause a trauma in you that will be hard for you to heal from. Sometimes you have to leave people that can't see the good in you. Maybe you are not this traditional woman that this man is trying to force you to fit in the box. And he's going to make it seem like you're not feminine enough, you're not woman enough, you're not sexy enough, but there's a man out there, the right man that will appreciate the fact that you a boss. You just with a man that can't see that. You are not his future wife. Too many times we stay in relationships with people that God didn't draw us to. And that trauma of not feeling good enough for somebody that you love, that hurts. That's what broke your heart. Everything that man hates about you, the man of your dreams will love.
Get a piece of paper, you write it on the paper, who hurt me? And anyone who comes to mind, put them on the paper.
Wow.
It doesn't matter if you think you moved past it, doesn't matter if it happened a long time ago. If they come to mind, just put them on the paper. A lot of people don't realize if you do this list, there's gonna be people that come out that you were suppressing this entire time. But at least now we can put it out in front of us, because that's the big problem is people are in denial of their lack of healing. They're in denial of the trauma they're holding on to. But this list helps us, again, see it in front of us.
When you love someone with childhood trauma, there's going to be times and arguments that you realize that the emotional reaction that they're having towards you isn't about you. It's about something that happened in their past, and they're projecting it onto you. And so you kind of have two options at this point. You can point that out and tell them, that's just about your crap, in the past, and it's not my job to fix that. That's not about me. You need to go figure it. You can stomp on them emotionally. That's an option. Or you can take ownership for your part and talk about how you're feeling. Something like, hey, I just want to take a second to put a bookmark in this and lower my intensity and calm down, because I know this is important. I want to keep talking about it. I just need a second to breathe. Because what you'll notice is that when the intensity of the argument goes down, the projection goes down.
Well. Those videos, the second video, I think it was, where the young man was saying that at some point in our life, we have to get a piece of paper and write down all the people that hurt us. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times we don't, or we think we have healed from certain things until you start writing, and that person will pop up in your head. And it's almost like, don't question it, just write the name down. Mm-hmm. And then you can go back and talk about, that hurt. And then 9 times out of 10, you realize you were never completely healed in that area.
Absolutely. I think it's important to walk ourselves through and take an emotional inventory of where we're at, where we're going, our goal in terms of our healing and our growth, because we need a destination, even though the journey is continuous. I don't think we ever truly arrive. I think part of the point of it all is to continue to build upon what we are learning and how we are growing, because we're always changing. But to take that mental and emotional inventory and identify, okay, this is where I'm at. These are some of the things that are holding me back. How can I move out of this? And a lot of times people don't take the time to recognize and peel apart the layers of their own hurt and of their own trauma to identify what is continuously happening that they can begin to change within their own personal trauma cycle.
A lot of times I think we build off of it. And if I'm in one situation and I decide, it's time for me to move on, mm-hmm. and to hopefully heal. But a lot of times we don't. We go on to the next relationship. And then what we find is certain things that happen in that relationship is triggers, mm-hmm. From, whether it was past relationships or childhood trauma.
Yep.
What do you do when you are connected to a person that you are building a relationship with, and you can tell that there are some things that maybe need to be discussed or healed, but that they're not ready?
I think it's important that we realize that we're all a part of our own journey.
Okay.
Right? So in a relationship, whether it be a friendship, intimate partnership, a marriage, romantic relationship, whatever it is, there are two parts to that. And while there is the space in between you, the joined relationship, the collaborative relationship, you also have a relationship with yourself. Yeah. And so if you aren't tending to the relationship with yourself, it can often impact the combined relationship, and that can be problematic. So something that we say is there can be like insecurity in the relationship, but there can also be insecurity in the self. And
yes,
I can't heal your individual insecurity. I can reassure you, I can support you, I can listen to you, but I can't heal that. I can heal the insecurity that maybe I created in the relationship because yes. I did that.
Yes.
But anything previous to that, something that's within the individual, it's that individual's job to care for themselves and heal themselves and grow and move through that. And that can be complicated in relationships because a lot of times we're looking for our partners to fix us, mm-hmm. and our partners to heal us. Mm-hmm. And we're also pointing the finger primarily at our partners, especially when hurt takes place, because they're the most recent hurt that's taking place. But so rarely do we take the time to to take steps back and identify, okay, yes, maybe they hurt me, maybe they disappointed me, but that's not the first disappointment that I've ever experienced.
Right.
That's not the first time that I've ever experienced pain, but they're getting all the energy as if it is the first time that I've experienced that
pain. It's always easy to
pain.
give it to the person that's closest to you.
Absolutely.
You know, versus putting that that energy towards the person who actually hurt you, or just getting to a place where you start dealing with that those situations. I know for me, and I would love to say, you know, it's because this is what Capricorns do, and we do. But I will go silent because although I'm hurting, I don't want to, you know, I don't want to intentionally hurt anybody else. So sometimes when I'm trying to figure stuff out, I just get silent. And then, but I know that can be...
Well, that can cause pain too.
Yeah.
Because depending on the person that you're going silent towards, that could have been a mechanism that was used, or a defense mechanism, or an approach to trauma that maybe somebody used to cause them pain.
Yeah.
And so now, even though you're doing it with different intent, it looks the same. And so that's why these conversations are so important to have, especially between the two individuals in the relationship, because at the end of the day, no matter how well you know somebody, you don't know what's going on inside of their head. You don't know everything that's happened in your life. Even if you have all the details, you don't know how it's impacted them, what intrusive thoughts they continue to have as a result of it. There's just so much that we don't know, and so much that goes on inside of the individual. And so having those conversations and saying, you know, when I become overwhelmed or I feel offended, I shut down. And I need you to know that that's not a result of you. That's me taking time to analyze what's happening on the inside of me so I don't cause more pain. That's important to know. And for your intimate partner to say, well, you know what, Carmen, when people shut down because my mom used the silent treatment against me when I was a kid, and it made me feel alone, and it made me feel sad and depressed and all these things. And so when you're doing that, even though you're doing that to protect me, it's actually hurting me. People aren't having those conversations.
And that's good, because I think that from what I'm single, so for what I'm learning, dating, or, you know, out in the dating world, a lot of men don't want to have conversations.
You think so?
When at least the ones that I'm meeting, like when you're talking or you're asking questions and you're just trying to, because I'm more of an intimate person. You know, I see the surface stuff. I'm not a surfacey person. So I want to get to know you. You know, I want to, you know, and over time, I'm not saying it's all in one shebang, but over time, I want to get to know what's inside your heart. You know what I'm saying? So when I start asking questions, it's like...
Do you think it's that they don't want to? Do you think it's that they don't want to, or they don't know how? They don't know how to receive?
Because one guy told me, he said, well... you know, I've never been asked these questions. And I'm like, well, what do y'all talk about? You know, you're going on a date, you know, like, what do you, and he literally said the S word. He said, we just be kicking it. I'd be like, oh, okay. So do y'all kick it about football, basketball? You know, is that something that you're more comfortable talking about? You know, because we can start there, you know, but eventually, if I'm going to stick around, I need to know what's going on inside you, because I want to treat you well. I want to make sure that I'm not doing anything that will cause triggers in your life, if I can help it. And I want to be able to be to a point where I can grow, you know what I'm saying, with you. Even if we decide to still be friends, I want to know these things. Yeah. But a lot of people are not.
I think most people just aren't taught how to communicate effectively, and they're also not taught healthy intimacy. A lot of times when people are considering intimacy, the first thing that we think about is sex. Immediately, when somebody says intimacy, it's sex. Physical intimacy is the first thing, but intimacy goes so much deeper than that. It's about what's below the surface. It's about getting to know someone, sharing that companionship, sharing deep, intimate parts of ourselves that we might not normally share with the person next to us, you know? And if we don't have practice in that, if we haven't had examples of healthy, intimate relationships, it can be very difficult to understand what to do when that happens. It can be difficult to trust it. Maybe they have had intimate relationships, but that intimacy was misused.
Yeah.
And so now they don't know how to receive it. Now, if someone is trying to get close to them, it's received as investigative, as you said. And so I think it's really important that we do our best to have those conversations so that we can understand. But at the same time, people have to be open and willing for that.
How long do you perceive that a person should begin to open up and share their life? Because not everybody that you go out with, you're going to end up with. That's obvious. But not everyone that you go out with needs to know certain things in your life.
I think it's important that there's no timeline, is what I will say. I mean, I am the poster child of no timeline. My husband and I got married 5-6 months after knowing each other. So it was very, very quick courtship. But I think it's important that we learn to trust ourselves. And that's something that also gets lost in all of the trauma of it all, is that we fail to trust our instincts. We fail to trust our intuition. We fail to trust our decision making. And because we don't have a trust in ourselves, it makes it almost impossible to trust anybody else.
So if I don't trust what's inside of me, it makes it harder for me to trust the person that I'm connected to, who may have the very best, my very best interests at heart.
Absolutely. Absolutely it does. Because if I have made the wrong, I don't even want to say wrong. I hate the terms right and wrong. I'm getting to a point where I really dislike that, just because I don't know if there's such a thing as right and wrong. I think that we make choices, and there are choices that serve us and choices that don't. And I think that's how we build trust, is paying attention to what we're doing and identifying, okay, I moved in this way. That didn't work for me. So the next time I'm in a similar situation, I need to move a different way. But again, so rarely are we that finite with our lives. We're not looking at it with a fine tooth comb and saying, okay, this didn't work last time, so let me make sure I change it up. We don't do that. We say, yep, I did this last time, but let me try.
It's a different person. Maybe it'll feel better.
Again, and maybe it'll be a little bit different. We don't take the time to really investigate and take that inventory of what's been working for us relationally and what hasn't, and chew up the meat and spit out the bone and make noticeable changes so that we can get different results. We keep practicing the same thing over and over again in relationships and get frustrated that it's not working when we need to change. Yeah. It's not the people aren't the problem necessarily. It's that we need to change.
If you come to the same fork in the road with different people, at some point you have to say, I'm the common denominator. So maybe they are doing some things that can hinder the relationship, but across the board, I'm the person that was there in each relationship.
Even more importantly, why am I choosing this type of person? What do these people have in common? Maybe it's not a face, maybe it's not a name, but it could be a characteristic. It could be the way that they're treating me. It could be something that's drawing me in about them. Maybe they have a certain edge to them that I'm attracted to because that makes me feel a little bit safe. Maybe the way that they communicate to me makes me feel attractive. There are so many different aspects of a relationship. And so I think it's important to identify what works for us and what doesn't. And when I say that, I'm not just the gentleman in one of the videos was talking about compatibility and how we choose people who are not compatible with us. But I think relationships have so much more to deal with than just compatibility, because when we're compatible with someone, that's saying you like this and I like this and we have that in common, and so it works together, right?
And those things usually you can find a common ground with that. But
for
that
sure.
doesn't necessarily mean.
However, there's also an aspect of relationships called suitability.
Yeah.
And so if we're talking about being suitable, those aren't necessarily things that we have alike. Yeah. Those can be differences, but they can be differences that strengthen us. Maybe you're good at making the money. Maybe I'm good at saving the money. Even though we're different in that way, we're suitable because there's a connection that's happening there. We're filling each other's empty spaces.
I love that.
But when it comes to suitability and you don't know communication and you don't know how to identify those things, it can become a power struggle because we're not open or aware or comfortable with allowing someone else to be strong in an area, and that can be complicated as well. So it's about being compatible, but it's also about being suitable and to making the effort to identify what works in a functional and healthy way for us.
Yesterday, or maybe it was the day before yesterday, I put a post up on Facebook, and it talked about submission. And it went on the lines of a woman will follow if the man is leading properly. When you talk about suitability and the power struggle, that's the submission is a big topic when it comes to relationship. It's a big topic for men.
Yeah.
And to not get into that power struggle about I'm the man and the Bible says, how do you communicate that we're both here and we're on the same team? And I don't want to take away from the Bible, because the Bible is what it is, when it talks about submission. Of course, the man is submitted to God, the woman is submitted to the husband, and the children are submitted to, the parents. But at what point do we... Sometimes it just feels... Let me rephrase the question.
Okay.
Sometimes it feels like some of the men that are really cheering on, you don't know how to be submissive, you don't know how to be submissive, are really broken. And it sometimes appears that they want the upper hand. They want to feel like they are in control of the relationship or the situation, because they have no control of what's going on inside of them and their life.
I think the tricky part about submission is the way that it's been painted for a very long time is that it's the woman's job to submit to the man. And it's not that I disagree with that. I think that there's a place for that. But I also think there's a place for a man submitting to a woman. I think submission is truly about strengths and weaknesses and identifying areas that you are strong in and I am weak in, and you are weak in and I am strong in, and saying, okay, like we said, you're strong in making money, so maybe that's an area that I'm going to submit in. Okay, maybe I'm strong at business development, so maybe that's going to be an area that you submit in. I think that there's this very black and white picture of submission as and it's painted as if it's supposed to be this one way. Men or women submit to men in all areas. And I think that even when the Bible talks about it, it is more broad, but people receive it in such a finite way. And that's not how it's meant.
Yeah, the spirit of it.
That's not how it's meant. Exactly. It's important that when we talk about submission, we recognize that it is a two-way street, particularly within a marriage and a relationship, and that there's a time and place for each person to submit to the other.
I have two close friends. I absolutely adore them. And when they decided to get married, he was really strong in cooking. So he didn't look at it as like, you're the woman, you need to prepare these meals. You need to make sure that the household is functioning with meals every day, or, cleaning and stuff like that. He said, I'm stronger at cooking, so I take care of all the meals. You're a very good mom.
Yeah.
So, I need you to focus more with the children, because his patience is a little, So I loved how they sat down and they had these conversations.
Absolutely.
And did exactly what you said. What are you strong at? What are you weak at? And they found a common ground. And although they still have, some issues, they don't have issues with going back and forth with, I said, you need to. It's always a healthy conversation with them.
Absolutely.
And I absolutely love that.
And I think another part of submission that people miss is that just because I'm submitting to you in this area, you are submitting to me in this area, doesn't mean that I'm never going to need your help.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're never going to cook again in life. It doesn't mean that you're never going to take care of the kids again. Maybe.
He said he doesn't want her in the kitchen.
Well, okay. Different strokes for different folks. As long as that works for them, that's what's important.
Yeah.
But I think it's, marriage and relationships are about partnership. It's about teamwork. And when we're talking about submission, we're actually talking about assisting the other person in some way. But I think people miss that part. The whole point of partnership, if we, I said this last time, if we were meant to be in the world alone, we would all have our own little separate islands, and we would just be chilling and not dealing with other people. But that's not the case. We are in very close proximity to each other. We have so much in common, and even scientifically, we crave that connection. We crave touch. We crave all of these things. So there is meaning and purpose behind that, and part of the purpose is help. And submission is truly about help. It's about taking something off my plate. If I am submitting to you, if I'm saying, yes, you are going to cook and I am submitting the kitchen to you, that's helpful.
Yeah.
That means I don't have to cook. Like, praise God.
Yeah.
That's something that's not on my plate. But so often there's this tug of war with it. Like, well, I want this. No, I want this. I want to be strong in this area. No, I want to be strong in this area. When at the end of the day, I think what most people want is help. What most people want is support. What most people want is a partner. Yeah. But we're so afraid to let go of those aspects of ourselves because we define ourselves so strongly by what we do as opposed to who we are. And I think that gets in the midst of intimate relationships a lot.
I think that for me, I was taught at a very young age, especially, going through the foster care system, being a ward of the state and stuff like that. I wore the badge of strength.
Yep.
Like it was just part of me. So everything I did, it was like, I got this, I got this, I got this.
And how do you feel like that impacted your intimate relationships?
Oh my God. Let me tell you, I think the first time I discovered it was an issue, my significant other was over. And we were talking. I said, hey, babe, I got to go down to to downstairs so I can, put some clothes in the washer and get the ones out the dryer and this and that. So he's like, okay, I'll come with you. So he's standing against the wall and we're just talking and I'm putting, doing what I'm doing. So I take the clothes out the dryer and I put them in a basket. And, I put them on top of the, the washer and stuff like that. So I'm washing the dryer off and this and that. So I went to go grab the basket. And he said, I got it, babe. I said, I got it. He's still holding on to the basket. And I'm like, I got it. I'm like, I got it. Can you let it go? He looked at me. He said, well, what am I here for? And I said, huh? He said, I'm here to take the load off of you.
Absolutely.
He said, you don't have to do all that when I'm here. And I, my little, at the time, I had a little smart mouth. I said, boy, I've been doing this for how many years? And
rejecting the help because that's what you were used to. And see, when we talk about trauma and relationships,
I didn't want to get used to the help just in case
it wasn't
he didn't
there
make
anymore.
it.
Yep.
I would have had to do it. But he was the first one that said, you don't have to do all that. That's what I'm here for.
And often that's how trauma often enters relationships. It's our individual traumas that create the trauma in the relationship. Yeah. And so that's why that individual work is such an important piece to the mix of relationships. So many people come to me and my husband for relationship coaching or marriage coaching. And that's great. We're here for it. We love love. We love Black love.
Right.
Like, we're showing up for all of it. We tell our couples all the time, your relationship is our relationship now. Your marriage is our marriage. Like, that's how invested we are in it. But we also stress the importance of that individual work. And oftentimes we'll split couples up and say, okay, we're going to have, you and I are going to have an individual session. You and him are going to have an individual session, because there are some individual concerns that are bleeding into the relationship and causing the disconnect. And so in order for the relationship to be functional, you have to be functional as an individual.
That's good. So let me ask you a question that shared with your husband last week. So I don't know if he brought it up to you. Now, if you don't want to answer, you don't have to.
Whatever it is, I'm here for it.
So when you guys first got together, how did you get to the point where you were able to get on the same page? Because I'm sure, although you may have done some work and he have done some work, how did you come together to get past maybe the past traumas?
I think that we're still doing work to get past the past traumas. And that's the thing. Sometimes we approach healing like, oh, okay, well, I'm past that, and so I'm good. And I think it's important that we recognize the importance of continuous healing and continuous growth, continuing to look back at that trauma and say, oh, is this still affecting me? Okay, I'm good. Is this still affecting me? Okay, I'm good. We have to take that inventory with ourselves, because anything being unchecked is going to continuously be problematic, because your brain doesn't know that happened 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And it can be something as simple as a smell that brings that memory right back to you, or that feeling right back to you. It can be a sound. It can be a color. The brain is so interesting, and it can be triggered off of so many different things, both positively and negatively. Yeah. And so you have to make sure that those things are staying in check. And when you know yourself enough, you can recognize when it's happening. In terms of timeline, my husband had done a lot more of the mental and emotional work than I had, which I was going to say it's shameful, but I don't speak shame or guilt. I think that those are negative emotions that we choose. Yeah. But looking back is something that I wish I would have been more aware of and spent more time on prior to becoming married and sharing my life with him, because I think that from my perspective and my part of it all, that would have saved us some of the disconnects that we had and some of the disagreements that took place, because I was still operating off of a broken heart, and I brought that broken heart into the relationship.
Okay. So we live in an urban community, and I see and I hear a lot of, because I want to start personalizing some of the things. I hear a lot of the men say that their fathers was not involved in their life, and or their mothers were not a part of their life. How does that affect the relationship when they decide to either, start dating, courting, or marrying, the other sex?
Well, our parents are our examples, and they're our examples of more than just how to act as humans. That's obviously the primary example, but they're also our examples of the way that these different genders operate. So when I look at my mom when I'm a kid, I'm looking at her as the representation of all women. And whether I'm a male or female, that's how I'm viewing women. So if my mother is a hurt individual, is a traumatized individual, is depressed, is in dysfunctional relationships, that's my basis, that's my foundation of what relationships are supposed to look like and what a woman is supposed to look like. And the same thing for men. If I'm looking at my father and he is a representation of what men are going to be, what men are, that's my impression of men. And the only way we learn is through our experiences. And so that can be shifted. The more people we interact with, the more examples that we have. But we also have to be very mindful of what is healthy behavior and what isn't. Yeah. And, I say all the time, you don't know what you don't know. So if that's your only example, or if you've never had an example, you're just figuring it out as you go. Yeah. Right. And so people who either had negative examples, parental examples or adult examples, or had that link missing, they had to do the work or find pseudo figures to fill those roles. And if you aren't in an environment where either those roles are healthy, or if you are in an environment where the roles are healthy, but you don't know the difference between healthy and unhealthy, a lot of those lessons can be missed.
And I know for a lot of especially our young men, of course, in beauty shops, we talk and stuff like that. But for the most part, we talk about relationships, but for men, I was the person who took my sons to get haircuts. The dad, just his patience didn't allow for him, to sit there for that long. So I took on the responsibility of making sure that the boys' hair were cut every, 2 weeks. And in doing so, they're grown now. So they're still at the same barber from when they were, 4 or 5. And now my grandsons go to the same barber. And when you sit in there, they have the most interesting conversations. Some of them are very helpful and healthy, and some of them not so much. So when you have young men that don't have a representation of a father or a father figure, they pick up a lot of stuff in the barbershop because it goes down in the barbershop. Yeah. How do you, when you start interacting with this young man who has only gotten his information from the men that come in and out the barber, shooting a breeze, and now we're talking about marriage or we're talking about courting, and I'm noticing some stuff that it's like, who taught you that?
Well, we have to be mindful too. We're in a society where everything is so accessible, right? So not only are you having these in-person influences, but there are so many influences online that are being created and so many perspectives that are being taken. And so it's not even anymore just about what's happening in your household or what's happening at school or what's happening in the barbershop or the beauty shop. It's about what you're consuming online, what you are. And, these algorithms are going to have us continuously viewing the things that we gravitate towards. And unfortunately, what we tend to gravitate towards is the drama. Yeah. And so that's what we believe romantic relationships consist of. That's what we believe is the normal. And the only way we can get outside of those perspectives is to surround ourselves with new perspectives, consume different types of media, surround ourselves with different types of people. our subconscious is so strong that we are constantly taking in information, whether it be through a conversation, through something we're seeing, we're listening to on the radio, an ad, a song, whatever it is. We're taking this information in, and we're creating, and we don't think it affects us, but we're creating all these perceptions and all of these perspectives, and we're acting them out in our life. Even something as simple as swearing. You know, you've noticed if you're around somebody who swears more, you start cussing a little bit more.
No, that's so true, because I was a woman that I never cursed, like never. But as I got around people that curse,
it just comes out.
I wouldn't cuss, but in my mind, I would be like, I just want to cuss because it sounded good. It made a certain impact, and I used to be like, I just want to cuss so bad,
because that's what you were being exposed to.
That's what I was being exposed to, and I actually went to my pastor one day. And I said, I think I may need some prayer. I said, because I think I want to cuss. And he just looked at me. He was like, what? He was like, girl. I said, no, I'm serious. I said, I think I want to cuss. I said, like, do the Bible say I can't cuss? Or is it just something that you guys are? No, honestly.
Yeah.
That's like, it's just
is it
something
frowned
that you
upon?
say.
Is it a sin? Like,
I said,
help me
now,
understand.
Is it a curse or is it a cuss? You know, I'm trying to I'm trying to play this game with him, and he just looking at me.
You find a loophole so I can say a couple F-bombs.
And he just shaking his head, and I'm like, no, because if I cuss somebody out, I'm not really causing a curse on them. So, and he was like, sis, just leave the whole cussing
it's not for you.
thing
It's
alone.
not for you. It's okay. It's all right. But sin or not, it's not for you.
And I did not start cussing. But a year after that, somebody made me so mad. I cussed them out so good. And I promise you, the devil was waiting for the right time, because I cussed them out good. And after it, I was like, I like this.
It felt good.
It felt good. So it was like it was storing up inside of me. You know, even though I knew it wasn't right, I was waiting for the perfect opportunity.
And that's what so many things are. They're pent up emotions, positive, both positive and negative. You know, at the end of the day, the root of most things is either pleasure or pain, right? We're operating out of pleasure or pain. And so those are the driving forces in most of the things that are happening. And even though in that moment you were doing something that might be perceived as a painful thing, it brought you pleasure because there were certain emotions that you hadn't expressed that you finally allowed yourself to express. And we talked about also, I'm not giving you therapy on the podcast, but
you can. I need it.
You know, the withholding and how you shrink and how you would stop talking about certain things. What do you do with those emotions? You're pushing them down. And the thing about emotion is that eventually it's going to come out in some way, whether it's coming out your mouth, whether it's manifesting in some pain in your body, illness or disease. Everything is connected. So we have to be very mindful when we are releasing these different things and identifying what's happening on the inside of us. We need to release everything that we experience, because if not, it's going to find a different way out that we might not have control over.
You know, I've noticed that certain men, and I'm saying certain, but I'm noticing a lot of men appears to have pent up anger. You know, and you can see it on their face. You can see it on their body when they talk to you. It's like such a hardness or a roughness, and it's like, babe, we talking about cake. Why are you looking like you about to thug out a piece of cake? Like, what is happening?
Well, you know, testosterone is real, right? And if men don't have specific outlets for those things, then it is going to come out in different ways. But same sort of instance, if we have emotions that we're not releasing, then they're going to come out in that sort of expressive way. And for men, a lot of time it presents as anger. And also societally, I think that is also because anger is one of the only emotions that are appropriate for a man to express. You know, a lot of boys get brought up in a society, and unfortunately it's still like this. You know, boys don't cry, and, you know,
stop whining,
walk it off, don't be a girl, like all these different things. And so they have in their mind that I can't show these emotions. And not only does that often happen in households, but it's reinforced in life, society.
How damaging is in that? Because I know I have had the conversation with my younger son. Now my older son doesn't do it, but I I catch my younger son saying it a lot to my youngest grandson. But boy, stop crying. You ain't no girl. And I'd be like, stop telling him that.
Yeah.
If he's so upset that he can't verbalize, and if he wants to cry, let him cry. You know, I don't want him to grow up feeling like if something wrong, I can't release my emotions.
And that's complicated too when kids are little. They literally don't understand what's happening. Like their brain can't even fathom why they are feeling the way that they're feeling.
Yeah, because when you ask them, what do they say?
They don't know. They don't know. With you? Or maybe they do know, but it's something, you know, seemingly small to us that they couldn't get their toy, or that they wanted to go here and they weren't allowed, or they wanted that treat. And it's just such a big deal because they psychologically cannot regulate their emotions. But because parents aren't taught that, there's no, okay, you had a baby, now take this parenting course so you know developmentally what's going on inside your kid. And, you know, those things don't necessarily happen. And because that doesn't happen, we view these things as disobedience. We view these things as maybe being soft or overreactive or emotional. And so based off of our upbringing, we have these reactions as opposed to taking the time to understand developmentally what's going on inside of our kids. Because when we take perspectives like that, they stick. Boys believe that they're not supposed to cry. And so now they're not supposed to cry. They're not supposed to show these emotions. And now this is trauma that's been created inside their intimate relationship because their partner just wants to connect with them on an intimate level. And they're not successful at it. They're not able to. Not that they're not willing, but they don't know how, because all of their life they've been told emotions make them weak. So now you're in this relationship with this loving person and they're saying, hey, these emotions don't make you weak. Show them to me. Let me love you. And they can't do that. Not that they can't, but they don't know how to do that because they are bucking up against their trauma and these things that have been ingrained in them for their entire life. So now you are trying to rewrite these codes that have been reinforced in your mind for your entire life, which is not impossible, but it is difficult.
One of the questions that I always ask a young man that I'm usually out on a date with, I always ask them, I look at them in their eyes and I say, when was the last time you cried and what was it for? And a lot of times they can't answer. They can't answer. And, you know, I say, and then, you know, maybe if one of their friends passed, I'd be like, well, your friend passed. Were you able to release, you know? And, nah, I'm good. You know, I just what? You keep saying, I know, I don't know.
Now, granted, there are other ways to express emotions other than tears.
We don't want them to punch walls.
Well, yeah, for sure. But not just that.
Go to the gym at least, do something.
Not everybody is a crier, right? Yeah. We're not saying that there's anything wrong with being someone who doesn't cry, because some people don't. They don't express emotion in that way. That's not necessarily unhealthy. I think what's most important is that we understand that the release is important, that it's important to understand what's going on the inside of you and take necessary measures to take care of those parts of you that maybe haven't adjusted or still need healing. We're constantly changing. Every interaction that we have is changing us. The conversation you and I are having in this moment is changing both of us, because that's the way that we're wired as humans, to adapt and overcome continuously in every situation. So because we're always changing, we need to continue to check in with ourselves and say, hey, am I healed? Is that still bothering me? I know I said this a little bit earlier, but it's really important to have that inventory so you can identify what's bleeding into my relationship. Why isn't this working? Because we're talking about trauma and relationships today. Asking ourselves that question, why isn't it working? And in the why of why it's not working, which part is my part? Because at the end of it, because we are two people trying to become one, if we're talking about marriage specifically, there's your part and there's my part, and then there's the collective part in between. Yeah. So that means if there is any problem, even if I didn't initiate the problem, maybe my reaction to your initiating the problem was part of the problem. Yes. Maybe me being triggered emotionally from my past trauma is contributing to the problem. Maybe me shutting down is contributing to the problem. Maybe me arguing back is contributing to the problem. We need to take those times to say, okay, what within my control, because the only thing I can control is myself. Yeah. What within my control am I doing to benefit this situation? Period. Not what the other person is doing, because that's what we like to do too. Yeah. We were talking about finger pointing, right? Yeah. What are you doing? Or this is what you have done. This is what you haven't done, as opposed to saying, okay, this is my part. And that's hard for a lot of people because they don't want to they don't want to take on that blame because they feel like if I say that I was wrong, then I'm going to feel bad and I'm going to carry guilt and I'm going to carry shame. And I think that that's necessary, not the guilt and the shame. We need to put that down forever, but it's necessary to take accountability for our actions so that we can move through them and grow through them and heal ourselves and help to heal our partner. If we're not taking those steps, then there's always going to be a problem between the two of us.
I like that. When we talk about childhood trauma, there's a large number of women that have experienced some type of sexual molestation.
Men too.
Or rape.
Men too.
And men too. How do you deal with that as a partner in the relationship if your partner reveals to you that, hey, this or that has happened to me? That's why it's hard for me to be maybe intimate with you, or it's hard for me to allow myself to be vulnerable with you in certain, times of our marriage.
I think the first thing that we need to do is listen. Listening is really important, and listen without the intent to fix, because when we really care about someone, we want to fix it. I know that's been one of my tragic flaws in my marriage specifically, is that when something's going on with my husband, I immediately want to fix it. And at the end of the day, there's not much that I can do to control how he's feeling. Even if I caused how he's feeling, at the end of the day, he is responsible for how he's going to manage that, what he's going to do with it. And we're so quick to want to fix things. So I think it's really important that we approach with compassion, care, and an ear to listen. And then following that, asking them questions as opposed to making suggestions. What is it that I can do to make this easier for you? How can I positively contribute to your healing? What is it that I'm doing that's not helping? What is it that I'm doing that is helping? What can I do to make you more comfortable? Asking those sorts of inquisitive questions that can help us, help that person get what it is that they need, or at least tease out what they feel like they might need, because maybe they don't know. Maybe no one's ever asked them what they can do. A lot of times I've heard, in my profession, I'll ask somebody, well, what can I do to help? And a lot of people will say, I don't know, because people don't nobody normally asks me that. I don't know how you can help. I think that's a really important question to ask, because at the end of the day, the only person who knows what you need is you. So if you know what you need, that means the answer is on the inside somewhere. It's just about taking the steps to identify what those things are. And the best thing that you can do as a partner is ask and then implement. If that person says, I need more non-sexual touch so that we can be warmed up to that. Okay, what does non-sexual touch mean to you? Maybe it means holding hands. Maybe it needs massaging. Maybe massaging is too much. Maybe it's just hand on the knee. Like, there are levels to this. Everybody's experiences are different. Everybody's trauma is different. And so it's up to you to identify what is going to make you more comfortable. And that's something that you can do with your partner. But it's important that we realize that it's not the partner's responsibility to heal that trauma, because it's impossible. Not to heal the trauma. Healing the trauma is possible.
Healing the person.
Yes, it's impossible to heal somebody else. I need to make sure that was clear.
So,
can't heal?
Yeah. So I hear a lot of men say that they most times don't feel safe with the person that they are in a relationship with, or women that they have been in a relationship with.
Absolutely.
How do we as a woman make it more, make it safe?
Emotionally safe for our partner.
Them to
respond instead of react. I think the reason that men often fail to feel safe with us is because if they bring a problem to us, what do? We blow up. We get frustrated. We want to control it because we're in the wave of independent women, right? And so we're used to doing these things on our own. And so when I do let you do this thing, and then it does, when I do let you,
Yeah.
I use that loosely, but let
Yeah.
you take this on, and then it doesn't go the way that we thought it would go or that you thought it would go. And then you come back to me and say, hey, babe, I tried it my way. It didn't really work. What do we do? I told you so. You should have listened to me in the first place.
Yeah.
And we run off at the mouth. And that's not helpful. And that's only contributing to that lack of safety. Everybody makes mistakes. And if every time I come to you with a mistake, you tear me down, beat me down, and tell me all the reasons why I should have just come to you in the first place, that's not going to make me feel safe. That's not going to make me feel like I have a partner. That's going to make me feel that I need to hide all of my flaws from you. And so as women, something that we can do to create that safe space is to be open. We have to be open to the mistakes. We have to extend compassion and care when they're sharing that vulnerability, because it's hard to say, hey, I messed up.
Yeah.
That's hard to say.
When you think about this statement I'm about to make, what is the first thing to come to mind? If a woman heals, then men around them will heal.
I think that there can be truth to that. Just like we talked about examples early in childhood, just because we grow up doesn't mean that we stop being impacted by our examples. Something I tell my clients rather frequently when they're in a relationship and they feel like I'm doing the work, I'm healing, but my partner just isn't there yet. You have to continue to do your journey and be a representation of what that healing looks like.
Yes.
It takes two people to have an argument. So if you're saying, you know what, arguing in this manner isn't healthy. Yes, we can have uncomfortable conversations, but I'm not going to argue. So I'm going to manage my tone. I'm not going to raise my voice. I'm not going to swear at you. That changes the dynamic of the conversation. Even if the other person...
That can mean a world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I do think that there is something to the idea that if I heal, you heal. But I think if I were to tweak the statement, I would say if I heal, it gives you an example of what healing looks like. It gives you an opportunity to say, oh, okay, this is something that I can do. This is what it looks like, you know. So I think it's more about that. It's more about continuing your own personal journey. And if the person that you're with isn't ready and you know that they're the person and you don't want to live life without them and you're willing to ride it out until they figure it out, which is tough, but possible, then it's important that you focus on your individual journey and work to be that example. Not, I'm working on myself and you're not. Look at me healing and you're not doing the work. We're not pointing it out in that way, but being a walking, living, breathing poster child of what a healthy relationship, healthy healing, healthy dynamics look like. Because at the end of the day, the only person we can control is ourselves.
Most women have been in a toxic relationship at some point in time in their life. When you talk about coming into a relationship with a man and dealing with all the things that women deal with, you know, and it's a plethora of things, you know, that women deal with, and, you know, as men as well. When you talk about triggers and maybe triggering different things in a person, how do you stay away from becoming that gasoline to, you know, the fire? Because women, our mouths can, you know, we can go there.
Well, I think we go there because in the moment when we're going there, our intent, which probably isn't, well, it's not probably, it's not healthy, but the intent is I'm feeling pain. And so in some way, I want you to understand how I feel. And the best way for you to understand how I feel is for me to make you feel how I feel. And that's an unhealthy approach because that's just pain on top of pain on top of pain. Right? So again, we can't make anybody.
Do you think a lot of times we know what we're doing? Or do you think sometimes
us as women?
Yes, sometimes, yeah.
I think a lot of times we know what we're doing.
So if we know what we're... Okay, so if we know what we're doing and we want the outcome to be in our best interest, where's the disconnect?
Comes down to rehearsed behaviors. If we're used to doing something in the same way over and over and over again, even if it's not getting good results, but this is just what we're used to doing, you have to be very intentional, aware of changing that behavior. For example, I'll give you a personal example. When I'm a fixer, I'm a reformed fixer. Let me change that. I'm a reformed fixer, y'all. I'm working on it. But it's been my knee-jerk reaction. If something, I said this before, if something is bothering my husband, I want to fix it. Yeah. So, but I can't. And my husband is the kind of person that cannot stand being asked what's wrong a million times over and over. And because I'm a fixer and because I want to understand and I want to fix it and I want to make it better, I'm like, what's wrong?
You good?
What's wrong? You good? You good? Everything all right? You need anything? What can I do, babe? Hello, hello, hello. Let me love you. Let me fix you. Like what? And it fails every time. I made a status about this, I think, last week. It fails every time. I've been married for 10 years. 10 out of 10 times if I do this, it is not going to work because I am trying to fix something that is not mine to fix, but I keep doing it. Why? Because I've been a fixer since I was 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. That I was the savior role in my family system. And so my fixing bloodline runs so deep. So even though I know, I'm a whole therapist, I know that behavior is unhealthy. I know that it doesn't work. I know that none of it is mine to fix. It took me years and still does, because I still do it to this day. I think I did it to him last week. What's wrong, babe? What's wrong? You okay? You okay? You okay? Because I want to fix it. But because that has been so ingrained in who I am for so long, it takes conscious effort for me to not. Like, so
you have to talk to yourself.
Oh,
like,
yeah, I have
leave
to.
Him alone,
yeah, don't do it. I know, like, I can feel it about to come out. I'm like, Rachel, stop. You know it's not going to go anywhere. Don't say anything. Just go in the other room, because you looking at him frustrated is only going to try to pull that out of you. So it takes a whole lot of awareness to break these cycles. And that's my cycle. And there are millions of other cycles that we experience. But I use that as an example to say sometimes these cycles go all the way back to when we developed our personality.
And although it may be toxic to you, it's not necessarily bad in a sense, because you have great intentions. So because a person know that you're like that, do they now try to adjust the way that they they're receiving it from you?
It's
still
not
not
his
yours.
problem.
It's still
my
yours.
problem.
You still need to fix yours.
Yeah, I need to fix mine.
But in a relationship, don't we adjust according to, the situations that come about?
I think it's important.
So
it's
not
important
like being
to
so stern, like I said, I don't like to stop doing it. Okay, babe. Maybe I don't do it 5 times a week. Maybe I do it 3, and eventually it get to 1.
It's important to be flexible, but again, we have to be mindful of our part in it, and that's my part. Part of my part is that I am like,
and now you
trying to. Yeah, I don't even know if it's triggering. My husband specifically, I can't speak for all men, but my husband likes to work things out on his own. He's a very thoughtful person in terms of the way that he considers a lot. So he goes through a lot in his mind. So sometimes when he's experiencing something and he doesn't want to hurt me with it, or doesn't want, even if it's a frustration with me, but not everything is worth talking about, right? Like maybe I pissed him off, but it was something small, and maybe it compounded on the rest of his day, but now he's irritated at me for whatever the reason is, and I'm like, let me fix it. But he knows on the inside of him, this isn't going to be a productive conversation. This isn't going to go anywhere. This was something small that I'm making a big deal out of, so I need to deal with it on the inside of myself. That's a process that he's going through. I don't know he's going through that process. Well, I do, but I don't at the same time, because I'm not a mind reader. And so I'm like, hey, let me fix it. Can I fix it? And let me help, do all these things.
You standing by like you finna jump in.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why when we say
and every time you do that, he stopped the rope.
Exactly.
You like, I'm
and
ready.
I'm like, And so I always say communication in relationships is so important, because we don't know what's going on inside of the other person. If my husband and I, in a moment like that, we're operating on like super spiritual ninja, like highest level of awareness, his response would be, right now I'm processing something that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you. And I understand that you want to fix it because that's the thing that you're trying to do. But I'm telling you, this is something that I need to go through on my own. And then But
even hearing that, if I'm still broken, although he's telling me I'm processing,
it feels like rejection,
and it has nothing to do with you, I'm still internalizing that, because I still have stuff that I haven't healed from.
And that would be your opportunity to be aware and say, okay, this hurt my feelings, but why did this hurt my feelings? This hurt my feelings because in the past I've tried to fix people, and I perceive that as rejection, but it's not actually rejection, because I can't actually fix anybody but myself. Where did that start? It started with my parents. It's important that we have these conversations with ourselves and work to walk in that continuous awareness, so that we break these negative family emotional cycles that have been been created generation after generation. The only way we can do it is be aware of it and then make conscious choices to change it.
Now, do you think that when you are beginning to get into a relationship that you see going somewhere, like, oh, I really want to court this person, I think that she is it. And I'm saying she only because I believe in he that findeth a wife, findeth a good thing and obtain favor. So I don't think, just my belief, whatever worked or rocked somebody else's boat, amen.
Absolutely.
But I don't see myself pursuing a man or ever, asking a man to marry me. But when he gets to that point where he say, I see her as a wife, do you recommend that they get individual counseling?
I think everybody needs a therapist.
And then come back, together before they get married?
Yeah, I do. I think that, it's important to be aware of where you're at. It's important to be aware of what might be keeping you apart, what each other's idea of marriage and relationships are, what roles you have in your mind of your spouse, of your husband, of your wife, whether that's realistic. There are a lot of conversations that people just don't have when they're entering into relationships because they don't know what they don't know. They don't know that, oh, well, when I originally thought of a wife, I thought of somebody that would be soft and, nurturing. And
a lot of that is not what we have now. With the post that, the submission and stuff like that, there was, we know that now you have a lot of women working in masculine roles. Whether they're, police officers, firefighters, whether they're working construction and, so you have women that are a little bit more masculine, not because they want to, but because maybe they had to be, know what I'm saying, to make ends meet or whatever. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the role that she's going to play in their relationship.
For sure.
Is that something that has to be discussed? Now, okay, listen, I know you give commands on your job, but don't come home giving me commands.
Maybe not in that way. Don't go talk to me like that. No, but I think it's important that I would hope that there are aspects of that individual that drew you in and that you were comfortable. Obviously, you're identifying that's someone you want to spend your time with. So there's something about them that is endearing to you and that you're drawn to and that you are so comfortable with that you want to build a life with that person. But yeah, I think it's important that we have those conversations and say, this is what I need out of my wife, because at the end of the day, me being a wife, me specifically, Rachel Webster, I'm not my own wife. I am D'Angelo Webster's wife. And so when I think of a wife, yes, I have my own idea in my head of what that's going to look like. But ultimately, it's important that I listen to what it is that he says he desires in his wife, because I'm not my own wife. I'm his wife. Does that mean I'm going to change my core person, who I am and what I like? And no, that's not what it means. But it does mean that the wifely roles that my husband desires, it is part of my responsibility to fulfill that. Yeah. And if I don't want to fulfill that, I don't have to be his wife. That's the thing that we realize. We get in these relationships and in these marriages, and then we're frustrated because our partner is asking for something that we don't want to give. We should have had that conversation about expectations and what this person wants out of their wife, what you want out of your husband, so that we can identify, are we a suitable and compatible match, because both of those things are in there, right? But these are conversations that don't necessarily take place. So because we're not saying, yes, this is the wife that I'm looking for, are you willing to do that? Even if you don't know how to do it, are you willing to figure that out? Because if not, that's okay. It doesn't have to be a mean thing. I'm not saying you're not enough. I'm saying maybe you don't have what I need.
Yeah. And that's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay. I remember when this young man wanted to wife me. No, he wanted to marry.
I like how you refer to everyone as a young man.
A young man.
Young man wanted to.
He wanted to marry me. My pastors gave me 2 packets because we would have had to go through marriage counseling before. So they gave us 2 packets, and they say, we want you both to fill this out. Don't discuss the answers until we, come back to the table. When I took that packet home, I looked at it was questions I would have never thought to ask. Never. And then you be amazed when you come to the table and now they're reading both of your answers. And maybe he has something and you have something. I think one of the questions was, how many times a week do you expect sex? And his number was such and such, and my number was such and such. And it was like, okay, so where do we compromise? Where do we meet in the middle? And I'm like, well, what kind of positions you want her in? What are you willing to do? And it's like, I'm not. And the pastor like, y'all have to figure this out now.
Because is that something that you're willing to live without?
Because once you get it, y'all gonna have a lot of triggers.
Absolutely.
Then. It's that marriage gonna be a mess. I'd never thought of that.
Absolutely.
I never thought of that. And I think because of the traumas that we have dealt with, I think we set ourselves up thinking that we can go into this relationship and people are going to fix us, with what they are, can or can't do physically for us.
Absolutely.
And
or I'm going to love them into change. Or
if
they
I love
should,
them enough, they'll change.
Or if they love me enough, then they'll change.
They'll change. Because I've had that thought process.
Yeah.
And to this
I've
last
said that
time,
before. I've said that to my husband. If you love me, then you will change the way that you're doing this. Those words have come out of my mouth.
I've said that
and
even
now
with friendships.
And now I'm looking back like, dang, I'm asking him to change potentially a part of who he is. And that's just not fair. I mean, yes, part of the goal when we come together with someone is to continuously learn and grow and become the best version of ourselves, because none of us come pre-assembled. So there is going to be work and change that takes place, and we do have to be patient with each other.
The essence of a person.
Right, but we do need to be patient with each other as we grow. But if I'm saying if you love me, you will change this. That's love manipulation is what it is. That's me using my love as leverage. That's not love.
But you hear a lot of people saying that.
Absolutely.
If you love me, you would do it. Or if you love me, you would change. You'll become this person and that person. And I don't think it's fair.
No, from my perspective, it's not, because you're asking someone to make a choice between you and them.
Now, I must say, I do have friendships that I tell them jokers. Now,
no, I think that's okay too. Though, so some of it is setting boundaries. Sometimes we're creating a boundary and we're saying, which is a standard.
As a boundary,
which is a standard to say, this is my expectation of how I'm going to be treated.
Yeah.
If you aren't willing to meet that expectation, then maybe we should part ways. I think that those conversations can happen in relationships too. We're just too scared to have them because we wonder what life is going to look like without that person. And if that's the case, you don't want to live your life without that person, then you need to ask yourself, is this something I'm willing to accept? Can I accept this person as they are right now forever? Yes, with the expectation that they are growing and I am growing and we're working to become the best versions of ourselves.
That's the key point. As we're still growing.
Absolutely.
Not where I've parked and put my bag down and I have no intentions on growing in that area or even trying to see if there's growth that I can get out of that area.
But we should know that about our partner. I hate the word should too, but it's important to, when we meet someone who is stubborn in that way, we know that they're stubborn. It's not new to us that they're stubborn. And we marry that person. Again, not new information. We believe the more that we love them, the more that we care for them, they will no longer be stubborn and change. And that's just unrealistic. And it's not fair to them because we're trying to force change. And it's not fair to us because we're putting ourselves in a position where we're going to be dissatisfied because we don't like that part of them.
And I think this year, I finally learned my lesson. It took me quite a few times to learn my lesson, but I always felt like Carmen is such a good person. You're like, I'm going to love on you. I'm going to have your back. I'm going to, and most of the time it's with people who have not experienced like healthy love or unconditional love. And I have placed myself in a position where I'm going to love the hell out of you. Yeah. Where it will
show you what love feels like.
And it will make you want that type of love. And even in that, it's like,
that's not fair.
It's not fair to me
or them.
I don't really care about them, but it's not.
But it's not.
But it's not fair to either one of us. It's not fair to them because why it's not fair to them?
It's not fair because, again, we're trying to force change. We're trying to force somebody to be.
But it's a good change.
even so, if they are happy and content with where they
Being
are,
miserable, leave them
who are
where
we
they
to come? Seriously, who are we to come up on the scene and say, I know that you don't recognize that this is what's good for you, but do this. That's their life. That's us taking away somebody's personal choice. And that's the one thing that God gave us that separates us from a cat doing cat things and a dog doing dog things. They operate in nature. And while we are animals and we operate in nature as well, we have the ability to choose. And in moments like that, we are saying my choice is more important than your choice. You set this boundary, but I'm saying, no, my boundary is more important than your boundary. That's just not fair.
Me. Let them stay where they are most
It's not about they have to decide who they want to be, and we have to decide.
But what I'm saying for me, like if I see that there's no change and this person is not wanting to change or wanting to accept their healthy love, who am I to change that?
Absolutely. You have to ask
yourself. Is offer who I am to that person in my authentic self. And if that's not enough, then I need to move on and not take it personal.
Absolutely, because it's not about you, it's about them.
It's about them. Listen, guys,
Carmen done got them therapy today.
I done got some therapy. I needed that. Man, I'm gonna have to look at stuff differently now. Who am I? We had an awesome time at the table with Miss Rachel.
Thank you.
Tell them where they can find you and your husband for services.
Yes, you can go to the Webster's Life Coaching Services.com, and that way you can book all your appointments. You can also find us on social media. I am Mrs. Rachel Webster. You could also find me under Coach Ray. My husband is Coach Webb or Webster Guy. We are on all platforms. Reach out, come get this healing. We're here for it. We love you. We want to help.
Listen, guys. Now I'm very, and I'm going to say this real quick. Anybody who knows me know that I'm very protective of the people that are in my sphere, the people that I feel like God has entrusted me with. If I recommend somebody, that means that I really think that they are in a place where they can be a blessing to you. So I'm telling you guys, look them up and become healthier. We're closing out a year and we're going into a new year.
Yes.
And
now
we
is
want
the
to
time.
start right now so that when we walk across that threshold at 12:59, we're on the right path.
Absolutely.
Get yourself some healing. Forget about what's going on around you. Go and sit down and talk to them. So they don't have to come to you in person. They can do
we do
Zoom.
virtual sessions. We do Zoom. We do phone. We do all the things. So
you can do it even if you don't want your spouse to know at this moment, because you need to tell them. Go sit in your car and take the phone call. Do the Zoom. And get yourself to the place where you are as healthy as you can get. Next week, we're back at the table with Dr. Eddie Counter. We're going to be talking about his new book, Who Can Find a Faithful Man? Now listen here. We always skate down the street to a Proverbs 31 woman. We dealing with the Proverbs 21 man. Okay? Because you listen, 21 come before 31 all day. Okay? No, just playing. So I will see you guys back at the table next Saturday, same time, same place.
yay.
Mace,